Long before Google, before Apple, before Silicon Valley, there was Bell Labs. They invented the transistor, launched the first satellite, and built the foundation for the digital world. Then, just as quickly, they vanished. This is the story of how the most powerful innovation engine in history was born inside a monopoly and buried by the very progress it created. In the early 20th century, AT&T controlled nearly every telephone line in America. It wasn't a competition, it was domination, a true monopoly. But instead of just hoarding profits, AT&T did something bold. They poured their resources into a secret weapon, Bell Telephone Laboratories. Founded in 1925, it was a fusion of AT&T and Western Electric's research teams. Not just a lab, but a kingdom. There were no product deadlines, no quarterly reports, just scientists, engineers, and unlimited funding. Their mission? Understand the universe and improve the phone system. Spoiler alert, they overshot. Bell Labs became a playground for geniuses. This wasn't some startup garage. It was a cathedral of science. By the 1930s, they were already bending reality, developing voice synthesizers, enabling transatlantic communication, building long-distance coaxial cables, and even experimenting with early fax technology. They didn't just build the tools, they built infrastructure. Behind every leap in communication, you could trace a thread back to Bell Labs. Their strength wasn't just in invention, it was in collaboration. The smartest minds in the world were given one instruction: go think. Then came World War II, and science became a weapon. Bell Labs delivered radar systems, encrypted phone lines, sonar technologies, and proximity fuses that detonated bombs when they neared a target. Their work saved lives, won battles, and changed warfare forever. After the war, America was booming. So was Bell Labs. They had proven that given enough time and talent, they could change the world. In 1947, three men, Shockey, Bardeen, and Bertin, unveiled the transistor, a tiny solid-state switch that replaced fragile vacuum tubes and opened the door to modern computing. For the first time, machines could think fast, store memory, and shrink in size. It was a revolution. From that point forward, Bell Labs was unstoppable. They developed lasers that made fiber optics possible, solar cells that harvested energy from light, information theory that defined how data moves. They created the building blocks of modern networks. They built the Unix operating system. They invented the C programming language. They made a digital signal processor that compresses, converts, and cleans nearly every piece of audio and video today. These weren't just breakthroughs, they were the foundations of everything that followed. Every computer, every smartphone, every server, you can trace them all back to Bell Labs. They even worked on the first communication satellites. In 1962, Telstar was launched, enabling the first live transatlantic television broadcast. That signal, it ran through Bell Labs tech. And while the space race took center stage, Bell Labs quietly kept winning Nobel Prizes. By the 1970s, they had racked up more than any other corporate lab on Earth. So, why did it work? Because Bell Labs had something no other institution had: time, freedom, and trust. Researchers were encouraged to think in decades, not quarters. Failure wasn't punished, it was part of the process. Physicists worked next to metallurgists. Programmers traded ideas with hardware designers. One casual conversation over lunch could trigger a global breakthrough. They had funding, yes, but more importantly, they had freedom. And all of it paid for by your monthly phone bill. But no golden age lasts forever. In 1984, the US government forced AT&T to break up. The monopoly was over, and with it, the financial foundation of Bell Labs. Suddenly, there was no more guaranteed funding, no safety net, no long-term vision. The lab splintered. Some parts stayed with AT&T. Others were spun off into a new company, Lucent Technologies. Lucent was supposed to be the future. It was sleek, it was fast, it was public, and it chased everything Bell Labs never had to: earnings, forecasts, market share. The soul of Bell Labs fractured. Instead of open exploration, researchers were told to focus on marketable products. Revenue became the guiding star. Discovery took a back seat. Then came the dot-com bubble. Lucent bet big on telecom. Huge mergers, risky acquisitions. Then the bubble burst. Lucent crashed hard. Entire departments were gutted. Dozens of labs were shuttered. The pipeline of innovation cut off. By the early 2000s, the lab that once built the future was bleeding out. Today, Bell Labs still exists, technically. Now, it's owned by Nokia. They still do research. They still file patents. But it's not the same. The Nobel Prizes stopped. The breakthroughs slowed. The magic faded. Why? Because the system that made Bell Labs work doesn't exist anymore. In a world driven by venture capital, engagement metrics, and short-term returns, who has time to think 30 years ahead? Innovation didn't die. Patience did. Bell Labs proved something dangerous. If you give smart people the time, trust, and purpose, they can change the world. Take that away, and you don't just lose jobs, you lose the future. Google isn't Bell Labs. OpenAI isn't Bell Labs. Nobody is, because Bell Labs wasn't just about invention, it was about purpose. They weren't chasing profits, they were chasing progress. And that's what made them great. That's what made them matter. And that's what we lost. Bell Labs didn't fail because it got worse. It failed because the world around it changed. It created the very tools that destroyed its own environment. It built the transistor and was undone by the revolution it unleashed. The greatest lab in history died by success.